John here, getting ready to do another one of these. Finished up the 7-segment LED here with all these strips of 5 LEDs each. Let's get a better view at where we're going before we start soldering things together. I'm going to zoom in on this LED here. I'm going to place these strips. I've got 2 strips wide in each one of my segments, as you can see here. Now, if you look closely, you see this arrows pointing up right here, and the arrows are pointing down right there. These arrows here are pointing all to the left. The arrows up here are pointing over to the right, and so on. Every one of these segments, you can see these are down, these are up, these are right, these are left, and so on. Every one of them are complementary. This is up, that one's down. This is right, that's left. This one's up and this one's down. Now let's zoom in and look and see why that really is. So every one of the joints in the LED says data in, then you have your LED, and then it says data out, which hooks up to the data in for the next LED. And then his data out goes to data in for this guy, and so on. When we cut this strip here, we need to extend each of these 3 contacts that used to just be one together with these wires. So this ground goes to ground. Data out here goes to data in there. 5 volts here comes around and goes to 5 volts there. We just simply have to hook them all up that way. Now, to help you out, these arrows are put in here to show you the flow of the data from in to out. So when we are all done, the data will flow in from these wires externally to the LED. This is where the power in my main data comes in. This gray wire here is my data in line. And this is my ground and my 5 volts, which will then continuously flow through each one of these joints. As you can see, this data will flow out of here and into this one. The data that comes out of this strip up here turns the corner and flows into the strip over here on the right. Now, I've purposely done this way and in this order so that I never have any wires that actually have to cross each other on any of these corners. So what we're doing is we're flowing the data in the inside of the top part of the LED and making this corner to this guy, again around the inside, going down, and then out here into this guy. So that we've made all the way around the top part of the LED on the inside. Now, as you can see, this corner here makes the data flow over to the outside of the bottom LED. Down the right side, again around this corner over here, into the bottom of the bottom side, turns another corner over here. Again, always with the arrows, flowing up to here. We make a U-turn, turn around. Now we're flowing down the inside of the bottom. We make a turn here. Inside of the bottom again, make another turn. Now we're up the right side, inside of the bottom. We make another turn over here to finish the inside of the bottom. And now we come back around to the top. We swing around to the outside of the top to finish. Up the outside left corner. You can see I melted this wire a little bit here. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of ugly, and I'd rather not show that. But, you know, once you snap the cover on the this 7-segment LED, no one's going to see that anyway, as long as it doesn't touch any of these other wires. As long as I don't melt more than one and short them together, that's fine. Come over here to the data in of this strip here. We make another turn over here, down the right outside. And we come to the end. Now, I did not yet solder a wire on here. I'll put a wire on this data out and run it through this hole. And then once I come out of this LED, I can go into the next LED. So this is where we're heading. Let's go ahead and assemble it up and start measuring out the wires and soldering them in. So the first thing we need to do is to cut these into strips of 5s like this that fit into the segment size that we printed. I printed mine to have 2 segments wide by 5 LEDs long each for the strip size. So the ALITOVE strips that I bought have a rubber tube around it for waterproofing, which is okay, no big deal. I didn't need that, but this was the whatever the price point that I ordered them at. This was the bargain price. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got to cut them into strips of 5. You can see there's little black lines between each LED. You want to cut right on there as close as you can. If you're off a little bit, it's no big deal. And this is just a little tubing so you can kind of give it a shake and it kind of falls out and you pull it out. So I have 5 segments times 2 strips, or rather 7 segments times 2 strips each. So I'm going to need 14, 2, 4, 6. So there's 6. I need to cut 14 of these into groups of 5. By the way, when you do this, like I'm grouping them into 5s. I'm cutting them into groups of 5s. There's a seam right here. It turns out that this particular product has a seam every 30 LEDs. Well, if I cut them by 5 starting at the beginning, then I'd hit every one of these seams. That would be very annoying when I go to solder them in. So what I did is I cut one single LED off the beginning of the strip, and then I went by 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. And now this seam comes in the middle of a sequence of LEDs that I place inside each one of these segments. And that's much more palatable when it comes to soldering all the little wires to connect them together. Alright, so here's the last one. Give it a little push, take it out of there, throw that away. And we've got our 14 strips. Now, don't just go and stick them in here and start soldering. You'll overheat the plastic probably while you're trying to get these things tinned and getting things together. So what I do, first thing I do is I grab a piece of cardboard like this, put the strips on here, heat up your soldering iron, and first pre-tin where all the wires are going to go. Because this will make it very easy. All you need to do then is just simply heat it up, and the wire will just immediately grab onto these little tinned fingers on the ends of these strips. So the first thing you want to do is tin up the ends of your 14 strips like this. Alright, so let's figure out how to size up the wires that we're going to need to solder these together. These have all been tinned. I'm going to put them in here. This arrow is pointing that way. The next segment we'll put in is this one, and the arrow is pointing this other way. This one's pointing down this way, and this one goes in here, and that points this way. So let's figure out how long the wires are going to be. So we know these wires are going to come in this hole and go to here. That's fine. These other ones, we got to run around these corners. Alright, so if we line these up, and you put the edges of the LEDs right on these bevels here, these flat edges, so that they're all centered on the segments. We can kind of get a gist. You can see these all are basically the same length, especially for around the inside corners there. I'm going to use this wire here. This is a 24 gauge solid core wire. I often call it Bell-tail wire because that's what they use to hook up phones. In fact, I got this by cutting open a strip of this stuff. This is a 12 pair, like Cat 0 almost, or Cat 1/2. 12 pair audio cable from old phone systems. Anybody's ever doing a remodeling job in an office building somewhere, wander in, maybe they're going to be throwing out a bunch of that. I've been getting it that way for free for 30 years. An unending supply of free wire. You just got to wander around and look for who's throwing it away. Anyhow, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of eyeball our first one and then sort of figure it out from there. So if we come around this turn, it's soldered onto that little blob of solder on there, that tinning blob. Come around the corner, and then we're going to hit this other one. So let me cut this off at about the right length. It looks like about right here. I'm going to just guess this first one. No big deal. And I'm going to hold on to it with little teeny pliers. Trying to get an eyeball on that. Is it the right size? It looks pretty good to me. And we come around this corner. It should be okay for this one as well. Yes, it looks good. It would fit in there. Looks good here too. And these are, you know, examples of the outer bend in this tighter, this obtuse angle and the acute angle. Due to this skew here. So as long as you keep these strips centered, the wires in here should all be about the same size. Good enough anyway. So all I'm going to need now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these, because this is the U-turn and that one doesn't have any corners on it at all. So I need to just line these up like so, and very carefully eyeball each one of these and cut them all the same, trying not to... I want to use the same one as a pattern each time so I don't replicate any possible error as I go. I'm going to just cut a bunch of these guys, right? When I'm done cutting them, I don't have a wire stripper that I can get on this tiny little piece of wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it in the pliers like this. I'm going to take these cutters. I kind of like these cutters. They like. I'll put a link to these in my description of the video. I got these on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. You gently grab it and then you pull on the jacket of the wire and it just comes off. If you grab it too tight, you'll cut the wire. So what? Throw it away, make another one. So you'll get used to it. It takes a little bit of a little finesse to get it right each time. But when you're done with this thing, it'll set right down in there and you can solder them all in. So here I'm tinning up the wires that I'm going to use to connect the LED strips together. The goal is to get both ends of each one of these pieces of wire pre-tinned so you don't have to worry about flux and extra heat when you're actually inside your LED soldering the strips together. Otherwise you end up melting stuff and it gets to be a problem. Better to melt them here. If you screw one of them up, so what? Throw it away, cut another one. Alright, so let's try to solder some of these together now. This one's the bent one. Let's see if we can get that one in there first. I want to put it on about a 90. I'm going to grab it with this little tweezers. And I'm going to hold it where it wants to be. Right there. And all I need to do is heat the little bubble of solder that I left on the end of the strip here. They take like a second and we're done. So that one's on. Let me do the one on the other side. Now you don't, when you do the first wires on here, you need to keep the strips where they belong. If they start moving around on you, this end might fit and then these will open up or something, or if you end up like that, then the wires won't fit. So the first wire is the kind of the important one. Just make sure you get it to where it belongs, that's all. You measured it with the strips here. Solder it in with them in the same place. Now that didn't go on so good. You see me using this little dental pick thing. This is actually part of a kit from I bought on Amazon for it's for wax sculpting actually. I'll put a link to where I got this from in the description of this video. I find this very useful in this particular process, so you can grab these and kind of pick them up or push down on them and you can hold on to them while you're soldering. This is a pretty useful tool for this kind of soldering. So there we go. We can just go around the corner. We'll put each one of these on there. And again, we don't need to add any more solder. These little bubbles of solder that I left on the ends of these strips is all I really need, as long as I tin the wires in advance. You just set it on there, heat it up, it goes right on in.